This code imports the necessary libraries and modules to perform a co-integration analysis on a dataset in Python. Specifically, it imports the estimate_long_run_short_run_run relationships and angle_granger_2_step_co-integration_test functions from the co-integration_analysis module, as well as the pandas, numpy, and matplotlib libraries for data manipulation and visualization. The %matplotlib inline command allows for inline plotting in Jupyter notebooks. This Python code essentially reads a .csv file and converts it into a data frame with two levels of column names. The first level contains the stock names and the second level contains the type of market data, such as bid/ask or price/volume. The function read_data is responsible for reading the .csv file and converting it into a data frame. The market_data variable is created to store the data frame created by the read_data function. The display function is used to show the first 5 rows of the data frame. The stock_names variable is created to store a list of the stock names present in the data frame. Finally, the print statement displays the available stocks by accessing the first level of column names in the data frame and getting their unique values. This code creates two functions, bid_ask_price_plot, and bid_ask_volume_plot, which plot bid and ask prices and volumes for two specified stocks. The first function creates a larger plot with a title and 4 lines representing the bid and ask prices for the two stocks. The second function creates a smaller plot with a title and 4 lines representing the bid and ask volumes for the two stocks. Both functions use a specified grid size to ensure that the plots can be matched with other plots. The plt.show function then displays both plots together, with the two functions being passed as arguments. This code first imports the onepagecode.soupstok.com module and then uses it to iterate through a list of stock names in the variable stock_names. For each stock, the code calculates the mid price by adding the bid price and ask price and dividing the sum by 2. These mid prices are then stored in a separate column called mid price in the market_data data frame. Finally, the market_data data frame is sorted by column index and the first few rows are displayed using the .head function. Essentially, this code calculates the mid prices for a list of stocks and displays them in a sorted data frame. Code is a function called mid_price_check that checks the mid price for different stocks and plots it on a graph. It takes in a parameter called stock, which refers to the stock that is being checked. The function creates a figure with a size of 20 by 5 using the plt.figure function. It then plots the market data for the specified stock's ask price, mid price, and bid price using the plt.plot function. The x-axis is set to display no ticks using the plt.sticks function. A title is added to the figure using the plt.title function and a legend is created using the plt.legend function to label the different lines in the graph. Finally, the graph is displayed using the plt.show function. Overall, the function helps visualize the mid price for a particular stock and compare it to the ask and bid prices. This code is analyzing a dataset of market data for multiple stock names. The first line defines two variables as empty lists to be used for storing data. The next line defines a dictionary for storing z-values, which will be calculated later. The for loop is used to iterate through each stock name in the stock_names list. This is done twice, indicating that the code is looking for relationships between different pairs of stocks. The first if statement is checking if the two stocks being compared are the same. If they are, the code continues to the next iteration. If they are not the same, the code checks if the pair is already listed in the pairs list. If it is, the code also continues to the next iteration. The next few lines use the estimate_long_run_short_run_run_ relationships function to calculate the constant, gamma, and alpha values for the two stock names being compared. These values represent the long-run and short-run relationships between the two stocks. The next line uses the Engel_Granger_2_step_cointegration_test function which tests for co-integration between the two stock prices. The p-value is then calculated from this test. The z-value is also calculated using the same function used earlier to calculate the constant, gamma, and alpha values. The last few lines then append the pairs, constant, gamma, alpha, and p-value to the data_analysis dictionary. The z-value is also added to the data_values dictionary with the pairs as the key. Finally, the data_analysis dictionary is converted into a data frame and rounded to 4 decimal places before being set as the index. In summary, this code is looking for relationships and co-integration between different pairs of stock prices using specific functions and storing the results in a dictionary and a data frame. This code is a function that takes in a set of data called data_analysis and plots the distribution of the p-values in that data. The figure it creates is 20 units wide and 5 units tall. Then, it creates a histogram with 100 bins to represent the distribution of p-values. The x-axis of the histogram represents the p-values, and the y-axis represents the number of observations. Finally, the function gives the histogram a title and displays it. Another function called plot_values is then called to execute this code. This code iterates through a dataset and sorts it based on the p-value column. The first line sorts the dataset in ascending order and returns the first 10 rows, while the second line sorts the dataset in descending order and returns the last 10 rows. This allows us to view the 10 most and least significant data points in terms of their p-values. P-values are statistical measures that indicate the likelihood of a null hypothesis being true. A lower p-value indicates a higher significance and a higher p-value indicates a lower significance. By sorting the dataset by p-values, we can quickly identify the most important and least important data points in the dataset. This code is useful for data analysis and can help us understand which variables have the most significant impact on our data. The display function simply shows the sorted dataset in a readable format. This code performs a data analysis on a dataset called data_analysis. It first filters out any rows where the p-value column has a value greater than 0.01. Then, it sorts the remaining rows by the values in the p-value column in ascending order. The resulting dataset is stored in a variable called tradable_pairs_analysis and is used for further analysis or visualization. Essentially, this code is used to identify and prioritize the most significant or relevant data points in the dataset for potential trading opportunities. _executed equals stock_pairs I stock_pairs j for I in range len stock_pairs for j in range I plus 1 len stock_pairs. This code creates a list called stock_pairs which includes all the possible combinations of stock pairs that can be traded. It then creates another list called stock_pairs_executed which stores lists of pairs formed by iterating over the stock_pairs list. Each pair has one stock from the first position in the stock_pairs list and another stock from a position further down the list, ensuring all combinations are captured. This code is useful for analyzing and executing trades involving different pairs of stocks. This code creates a list called list_stock1 that contains the first element from every pair in the list stock_pairs. It also creates another list called list_stock2 that contains the second element from every pair in the list stock_pairs. Then, it iterates through every element in list_stock2 and appends it to list_stock1. After that, it creates a new list called unique_stock_list that contains only the unique elements from list_stock1. Finally, it uses this new list to filter the market_data and create a new data frame called tradable_pairs_data that only includes data for the stocks in the unique_stock_list. This code is defining a function called plot_tradable_z that plots the z-values of all pairs based on the data_values data frame. This function uses a for loop to loop through each pair in the stock_pairs list. It then calculates the z-value for each pair and plots it. The plot has a title indicating which stock pair it is for, and has the time on the x-axis and the magnitude on the y-axis. The function also adds horizontal lines at positive and negative thresholds, which are randomly chosen values, 0.005 and -0.005. The legend of the plot shows the z-value, the positive threshold, and the negative threshold. After defining the function, it is called at the end of the code using plot_tradable_z to actually execute the function and display the plots. This function can be used to visualize and analyze the z-values of different stock pairs. This code imports a library called random and uses it to randomly select a pair of stocks from a group of tradable pairs. It then defines a function called plot_random_pair_bid ask prices, which plots the bid and ask price of the selected pair. The function takes the randomly chosen pair as its input and uses it to plot the bid and ask prices for each stock in the pair on a graph. It also sets the title of the graph to include the names of the two stocks in the pair. The function then uses different colors to plot the bid and ask prices for each stock, and also includes a legend to explain the colors. Finally, it uses the PLT library to display the graph. This code creates a plot showing the bid and ask volumes for two randomly chosen tradable stocks. First, it imports the one-page code substack and defines the function plot_random_pair_bid ask volumes. The function takes no arguments and has no return value. Inside the function, a figure is created with a size of 20 by 5 and a title indicating the two randomly chosen stocks. The bid and ask volumes for the first stock are plotted in red and magenta lines respectively, while the second stock's volumes are plotted as the secondary y-axis. The x-axis represents time and the y-axis represents the volume of stocks being traded. The function then plots the ask and bid volumes for the second stock on the same plot, this time using a different color for each. The result is a visual representation of how the bid and ask volumes for the two randomly chosen stocks compare to each other over time. This can be useful for analyzing trading patterns and trends for different stocks in relation to each other. Finally, the function calls itself and displays the plotted graph. Each loop, This code is designed to perform error correction for a dataset that contains information about stock trading pairs. It initializes an empty dictionary with specific keys to store the relevant data. The code then loops through each stock pair in the stock_pairs variable and calculates a z-value using the data_s values for that specific pair. It then converts the z-value array into a numpy array and calculates the number of zero crossings by comparing each element with the next element in the array. This count is then used to calculate the trading period and the long-run mean and standard deviation for the z-values of that specific stock pair. The resulting values are then added to the empty dictionary under their respective keys. Finally, the dictionary is converted into a pandas data frame and the pair column is set as the index. This allows for easy visualization and analysis of the error correction data. Essentially, the code is automating a process of calculating important metrics for each stock pair and organizing them into a table for further analysis. This code is using a for loop to iterate through a list called stock_pairs, which contains pairs of stock names. For each pair, the first stock name is assigned to the variable stock1 and the second stock name is assigned to the variable stock2. Then, a new entry is created in a dictionary called tradable_pairs_data. The key for this entry is a combination of the two stock names, stock1 plus stock2, and the string z-value. The value for this entry is taken from another dictionary called data_values, using the stock names as keys. Essentially, this code is taking information from one dictionary and organizing it in a new way in another dictionary, using pairs of stock names as the keys. Created as an empty dictionary. The first line of code creates an empty dictionary named gamma_dictionary. A dictionary is like a list, but instead of storing values in a specific order, it stores them in key-value pairs. The second line of code starts a for loop. This loop will go through each row in the tradable_pairs_analysis table. The third line of code assigns the pair and value variables to the values in each row of the tradable_pairs_analysis table. This allows us to easily access the values in each row. The fourth line of code adds a new key-value pair to the gamma_dictionary. The key is set to be the pair variable and the value is set to be the gamma value from the value variable. In summary, this code loops through each row in a table and adds the pair and gamma values to an empty dictionary called gamma_dictionary. Time equals value, std. This Python code creates an empty dictionary called std_dictionary. It then iterates through the rows in the data_error_correction_term data set and adds pairs and corresponding values to the dictionary. The pairs are used as keys in the dictionary and the corresponding values are assigned to those keys. It also creates another key called time and assigns the value from the std column in the data set to it. Essentially, this code is creating a dictionary that can be used to store and access standardized data values from the data_error_correction_term data set. This code calculates trading positions for two stocks using a gamma dictionary and a standard deviation dictionary. For each stock pair in a list of stock pairs, the code finds the value of gamma, a measure of the relationship between the price movements of two stocks, and creates a threshold for trading. Then, the code iterates through a range of values between 0.05 and 1.0 and calculates the current positions for each stock based on the bid and ask prices. These positions are stored in a positions dictionary. If the z-value, which indicates the price relationship between the two stocks, is above the threshold, the code calculates and executes trades using the bid and ask volumes and the maximum order size, based on the hedge ratio, calculated using the gamma value. If the z-value is below the threshold, the code does the same but with a different hedge ratio. Finally, the code updates the positions for each stock and calculates the positions for the other stock in the pair based on the hedge ratio. These positions are also stored in the positions dictionary, along with the corresponding threshold for each pair. This code takes a list of positions and converts it into a pandas data frame. It then rounds the numerical values in the data frame up and assigns it to a new variable called positions_final. Next, it creates a new column in the data frame called timestamp and assigns it the index values from a data source called tradable_pairs_data. It then sets the index of the data frame to be the values in the timestamp column. In summary, this code converts a list of positions into a data frame and adds a new column with timestamp data as the index. This allows for easier manipulation and analysis of the data. This code appears to be working with a data set of positions, perhaps in some sort of financial context. The first line creates a variable called positions_diff and assigns it the result of applying the diff function to a variable called positions_final. The 1 smiley face after the function tells the code to exclude the first row of data. The head function then shows the first few rows of the resulting data. Therefore, this code is computing the difference between each position and the previous one, and then displaying the first few rows of that data. This allows the user to see how the positions change over time and potentially identify trends or patterns in the data. This Python code involves working with two lists, namely positions_diff and positions_final. The first list is taking the last element of the second list and changing its sign to negative. It then replaces the last element of the first list with this updated element. In simple terms, it is copying the value of the last element in the second list and changing it to its negative counterpart, and then updating the last element in the first list with this new value. This code is creating a data frame called PNL_dataframe and filling it with information related to stock pairs. It first goes through a list of stock pairs and for each pair, it stores the first and second stock as variables. Then, it retrieves the ask and bid prices for both stocks from a dataset called tradable_pairs_data and stores them as additional variables. Next, the code goes through a for loop that iterates through a range of values from 0.05 to 1.0, with increments of 0.05. For each value, it calculates a threshold by multiplying the value by the standard deviation of the stock pair. It then creates two column names using the stock names and the threshold value. In the last two lines, the code fills the data frame with information for each stock at each threshold value. It uses the np.where function to check if the value in the positions_diff column is greater than 0, and if it is, it calculates the profit or loss by multiplying the value by the negative bid or ask price of the respective stock. This information is then stored in the data frame under the appropriate column name. Finally, the code displays the first 5 rows of the data frame. This Python code is creating a list called pairs and a list called thresholds. Then, for each pair in the list stock_pairs, it is assigning the first element of the pair to a variable called stock1 and the second element to a variable called stock2. Next, it uses a numpy function to create a range of numbers from 0.05 to 1.0, with 10 evenly spaced intervals. For each number in this range, it multiplies it by the standard deviation dictionary of the pair, stock1 and stock2, and assigns it to a variable called threshold. This threshold is then added to the thresholds list. Finally, the original pair, stock1 and stock2, is added to the pairs list. This process is repeated for each pair in the stock_pairs list, resulting in the pairs and thresholds lists being filled with corresponding pairs and thresholds respectively. This code creates a dictionary called PNL_threshold with three keys, pairs, thresholds, and PNLS. The value for the pairs key is a list of stock pairs, the value for the thresholds key is a list of thresholds, and the value for the PNLS key is an empty list. This dictionary is then looped through for each pair in stock_pairs. Within this loop, the first and second element of each pair are assigned to variables stock1 and stock2. Then, a new loop is created within the first loop that iterates through a sequence of numbers between 0.05 and 1.0 with a step size of 0.05. Within each iteration, a threshold is calculated by multiplying the current number by a value in std_dictionary at the indices of stock1 and stock2. This threshold is then used to access values in a dataframe called PNL_dataframe and add them to the PNLS list in PNL_threshold. After the loops finish, the code converts the dictionary to a dataframe and sets the pairs column as the index. As a result, the dataframe includes columns for thresholds and PNLS, with each row representing a stock pair and the corresponding values for those columns. Overall, the code is likely used for analyzing the performance of different threshold values for trading a pair of stocks. This code uses the groupB function to group the data in the PNL_threshold variable by the pairs column. Then, the ag function is used to calculate the maximum, max, value of the PNLS column for each group. The resulting data is stored in a variable called highest_PNLS. Finally, the sort_values function is used to sort the data in the highest_PNLS variable in descending order based on the values in the PNLS column. This code essentially finds the highest profit and loss, P&L, value for each pair in the data and sorts them from highest to lowest. This code is a function called plot_thresholds that takes two stock names as arguments, stock1 and stock2. The function retrieves data from a variable called tradable_pairs_data by combining the two stock names with a plus symbol and retrieving the z-value. It then creates a figure with a size of 20 by 15 and hides the x-axis ticks. The title of the figure includes the names of the two stocks. The z-value data is then plotted on the figure with an alpha value of 0.5, to make it partially transparent. The function then adds an x label of time and a y label of magnitude to the figure. It also sets the minimum and maximum values for the x-axis, with the minimum being 0 and the maximum being the length of the z-value data. The function then adds two horizontal lines to the figure using the PNL_threshold variable, one for positive threshold values and one for negative threshold values. The legend of the figure is then set to show the names of the lines added, the z-value line and the two threshold lines. Finally, the function displays the figure using the plt.show command, passing in the names of the two stocks as arguments for the function. In this case, the function is called with the stock names BB and JJ. The purpose of this code is to plot the z-value data for a pair of stocks, along with positive and negative threshold lines to help analyze the performance of the stock pair. This Python code is defining a function called profitability of the thresholds that takes two parameters, stock1 and stock2. The function uses a pandas data frame called PNL threshold to plot the profitability of the two stocks, stock1 and stock2, based on different thresholds. These thresholds represent the number of standard deviations away from the average value of the stocks. The code then adds a title, x-axis label, y-axis label, and legend to the plot, and displays a grid. Finally, the function is called with two specific stocks, BB and JJ, and the resulting plot shows the profitability of these stocks at different thresholds. The function essentially helps visualize the profitability of different thresholds for two given stocks. A dictionary that stores key-value pairs. Each pair consists of two tuples, where the first element represents a category and the second element represents another category. These categories are represented by a combination of two letters. The value associated with each pair is a decimal number. It is a threshold that is used to compare two categories. If the value associated with a pair is greater than a given input, then the two categories are considered similar. Otherwise, they are considered different. This dictionary can be used to categorize items based on their similarities and differences. Equals BB, JJ, FF, MM. This code creates a list called stock_pairs_final and assigns it with tuples of two stock pairs. The first line creates a list of 4 tuples, with each tuple representing a stock pair. The stocks within each tuple are denoted by 2 capital letters. The second line reassigns the list stock_pairs_final to only include the first 2 tuples from the original list of 4. In other words, the code filters out the last 2 stock pairs from the list and only keeps the first 2. This could be useful if there was a specific requirement to only consider a certain number of stock pairs. Is implementing a trading strategy for a pair of stocks. It creates a dictionary called positions_strategy_1 and sets an upper limit for trading at 100. It then iterates through a list of stock pairs and calculates the gamma and threshold for each pair. The code then initializes variables for the current positions of each stock and creates an empty list for the positions of stock 1. The code then enters a for loop for each time and data point in the tradable_pairs_data. Within this for loop, it calculates the bid price, ask price, bid volume, ask volume, and Z value for each stock. It then checks if the Z value is above the threshold. If it is, it calculates the hedge ratio using the gamma and the bid price and ask price for each stock. If the hedge ratio is greater than or equal to 1, the code calculates the maximum order quantity for each stock based on the current position and the limit. It then executes the trade by taking the minimum of the bid volume for stock 1 divided by the hedge ratio, the ask volume for stock 2, and the maximum order quantities for each stock. The code then stores the trade in the positions_strategy_1 dictionary and updates the current position for stock 1. If the hedge ratio is less than 1, the code follows the same process but uses bid volume for stock 1 multiplied by the hedge ratio instead. If the z-value is below the negative threshold, the code performs similar calculations but uses the ask price for stock 1 and the bid price for stock 2 to calculate the hedge ratio. The code also checks if the hedge ratio is greater than or less than 1 and performs the appropriate calculations. Finally, if the z-value is not above or below the thresholds, the code simply stores the current position for stock 1 in the positions_strategy_1 dictionary. After the for loop, the code checks the hedge ratio again and sets the positions for stock 2 by dividing or multiplying the positions for stock 1 by 1/hedge ratio and multiplying by -1 to indicate a short position. In summary, the code is using statistical measures to determine when to trade and how much to trade for a pair of stocks. It also takes into account the current positions and limits for each stock. This code converts a pandas data frame called positions_strategy_1 into a number py array and then rounds all of the values in the array up to the nearest whole number. It then adds a column called timestamp to the data frame using the index values from a separate data frame called tradable_pairs_data. Finally, it sets the index of positions_strategy_1 to be the newly added timestamp column. Overall, the code is likely being used to manipulate and organize data in a specific format for use in a trading strategy. This code takes in the variable positions_strategy_1 and uses the .diff function to calculate the difference between each data point in the variable. It then slices the first data point off, 1, smiley face, and assigns the result to the variable positions_diff_strategy_1. This allows for the comparison of consecutive data points and can be used for analyzing changes or trends in the data. This code takes the final value of a list called positions_strategy_1 and assigns it to the final value of another list called positions_diff_strategy_1. In other words, it is replacing the last item in positions_diff_strategy_1 with the last item in positions_strategy_1. This could be useful for updating or synchronizing information between two lists where you want the last value in one list to match the last value in another. This code loops through a collection of pairs of stocks, and for each pair, it retrieves the first and second item. It also creates a figure with the size of 20 by 5. Then, it plots the positions of the first and second stock in the pair over time. After that, it adds a title to the figure with the names of the two stocks, and it adds a legend indicating which line represents which stock. Finally, it shows the figure. This process is repeated for each pair of stocks in the collection. Python code creates a data frame called PNL_dataframe_strategy_1 and populates it with profit data for different stock pairs. It does this by looping through a list of stock pairs and retrieving ask and bid prices for each stock from a larger dataset. It then uses these prices and other data to calculate the profit for each stock and add it to the data frame. The final line prints out the total profit for all the stock pairs in euros. Python code is creating a P&L, profit and loss, data frame for a trading strategy that involves trading pairs of stocks. It first extracts the timestamp from the tradable pairs data and sets it as the index for the P&L data frame. Then, it calculates the total P&L for the strategy by summing the P&L of each individual pair. It also calculates the cumulative PNL for the strategy. Next, it iterates through the list of stock pairs and calculates the P&L for each pair by summing the P&L of each individual stock in the pair. It then calculates the cumulative PNL for each pair. Finally, it displays the last few rows of the PNL data frame. Overall, this code is used to track the profitability of a trading strategy involving pairs of stocks. This code is plotting a cumulative profit and loss graph of stock pairs, with the x-axis representing the time frame, and the y-axis representing the profit and loss values. It is looping through a list of stock pair combinations and assigning the first stock to the variable stock 1 and the second stock to the variable stock 2. It then uses these variables to generate the graph title and x-axis label. The grid is added for better visual representation and the x-axis labels are rotated to make them easier to read. Finally, the graph is shown. This code could be used in a financial or investment setting to visualize the cumulative profit and loss of various stock combinations. This Python code is plotting the cumulative PNL, profit and loss, of a trading strategy. It begins by importing a library for plotting graphs, and then uses a for loop to iterate through a list of stock pairs. Within the loop, it assigns the first and second stocks in each pair to variables named stock 1 and stock 2. It then uses these variables to plot the cumulative PNL for each stock pair in a graph. The graph is given a title and labels for the axes, and a grid is added for better visualization. The x-axis labels are rotated for better readability.